Excellencies, Federal Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today to the day of the Hungarian-Pakistani friendship. And why, you can ask, why it's the day of the Hungarian-Pakistani friendship? But for this explanation, I would like to call on stage His Excellency Mr. Ambassador Béla Fazekas.
Thank you so much, Tivadar. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really very grateful to you for accepting our invitation to celebrate together the day of the Hungarian-Pakistani friendship. Unfortunately, quite a few guests could not come today. The majority of those guests should have come from Lahore, but something happened today in Lahore. Maybe you know better than I do. But anyway, thank you very much for coming. Yes, Tivadar, there is an obvious question. What is this day of friendship, I mean Hungarian-Pakistani friendship, is about, and why 10th of March? The answer is as obvious as the question itself, because on this particular day, 10th of March, 1822, the first Hungarian traveler, the world-famous Hungarian Orientalist Sándor Kőrösi Csoma, has arrived to this part of the world, what we call today Pakistan. This was the first ever encounter between our two people. Kőrösi came to this part of the world to find the descendants of the Hungarian tribes were scattering around in Central Asia 1100 years ago. He did not find them. Instead, he decided to stay here for the rest of his life. And that is how the people-to-people relations between our two countries began. And so this is the 200th anniversary of this visit, which we celebrate today, and that is why we decided to declare 10th of March as the day of the Hungarian-Pakistani friendship. So when our governments in 1965, they agreed to set up diplomatic relations between Hungary and Pakistan, we had already a very long history of friendship. The first encounter was followed by new ones, and some Hungarians stayed here for years, other Hungarians stayed here for decades, but there was one common thing which was true for all of them, that they had a large contribution to the intellectual, to the cultural, to the spiritual, to the scientific life of Lahore, Karachi, and all the big cities in the 19th century. It is enough to mention only one example. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the example of the Punjab University. Quite a few people know that Punjab University was established in 1882 by a Hungarian professor. His name was Vilmos Leitner. 1882. 5 years later, 87, another Hungarian professor became the registrar of the Punjab University. The same person, August Schoefft, who 4 years later became the first principal of the Oriental College in Lahore. And you know, we can continue this list of Hungarians who had their contribution to Pakistan. But the list would not be complete without mentioning the name of August Schoefft, the famous Hungarian painter, who also arrived to Lahore in the 1840s and spent 4 years in the court of the Sikh ruler Ranjit Singh. The Hungarian painter painted beautiful pictures, one after the other, portraying the families of the Sikh royal family, and members of the Sikh royal family, and their everyday life. And then these pictures started their long journey from Lahore to Austro-Hungary, from there to London, then finally from London back to Lahore. But of course, this 150 years long journey, well, after this long journey, after more than 150 years, these pictures, they were in very bad conditions and they badly needed restoration. And this was the moment where our embassy, my colleagues and our embassy, we had the initiative to restore these paintings, which later on became the largest ever cultural project of our bilateral relations. You know very well that the bottleneck of every project is the financial background. I tell you frankly one thing, to initiate the project was much easier than to find sponsors. And that is why I cannot emphasize enough that without the invaluable financial support of the Bank of Punjab, this project could never be finished. And you know, mainly, and yes, this was due to the financial support of the Bank of Punjab that we could bring back these paintings to their original grandeur. And now we can enjoy those paintings. Let me give today a special welcome to the President and Chief Executive of the Bank of Punjab, Mr. Zafar Masud. Mr. Zafar Masud, the man who was behind this generous support with his Passion Reborn. And really, he is one of those very few men here in Pakistan I call a real Renaissance man. Very few of them are still with us. Real Renaissance man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not my last word to you, but that will be later. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in turbulent times. Each country has enough burden of its own. I think that people-to-people relations, they can help us to ease the burden. I mean, these burdens. that's why, I mean, during my activity as ambassador here in this country, for the second time already, I always tried to work on the strengthening of people-to-people relations. You know, governments are coming, governments are going. You can change governments. One thing you cannot change, the people. They remain the same. So it's much important to have good people-to-people relations. Anything else. That is the basis of basis. And that's why I decided to initiate this day of Hungarian-Pakistani friendship, the 10th of March. I would like to remember that with turning this date and the celebration of this date into a habit. Whether we will succeed or not, this will be answered on the 23rd of March, 10th of March 2023. We will see. So that's it, and thank you very much. Thank you for coming with me.
His Excellency already mentioned the restoration project which took place in Lahore, and it was a 3 months long process, and it was documented all the time, and we made a documentary movie about that. And I would suggest you to watch the full movie full-heartedly, but now unfortunately we don't have enough time to watch that, which is nearly 1 hour, but we made a shorter version of it, which is going to be screened now, and please enjoy the short version of the documentary.
The Princess Bamba collection is the largest collection of August Schoefft's paintings in Sikh Gallery at the Lahore Fort. The Court of Lahore Masterpiece by August Theodore Schoefft has first exhibited in 1855 Vienna. It's an intuitive force as a painting and a depiction of Lahore's history. It contains more than 60 biographical figures. Maharaja Sher Singh, who was his host at the time of his visit to Lahore, was assassinated. The Sikh Empire that had once been a place of great riches and treasures had collapsed, and its last ruler, the child king, Maharaja Dalip Singh, was in exiled captivity in Britain. Since their exhibition in 1965 at the Sikh Gallery, these 11 paintings have suffered degradation owing to Lahore's inclement weather, lack of attention, and improper ventilation. Now, these 11 paintings will undergo their overdue restoration by a team of 5 Hungarian art restorers. The final outcome of restoration should not be a radical transformation. It should only be the preservation of the artifact. With every challenge comes an opportunity to fabricate a new method and constantly rethink conservation. These paintings by August Schoefft have traveled a long journey.
We believe that we have to safeguard our heritage, and particularly those where the international heritage is involved. And this initiative will go a very long way in creating strong bonds between Pakistan, Hungary, and of course the Sikh community across the board.
One of the this Princess Bamba collection and the restoration project we took up essentially I think represents some of the components of initiatives that we are taking and we have been taking in the recent past, and it also represents a kind of renaissance, I think, within the band in terms of our own identity and how we connect with communities and society around us.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to announce that as a recognition of his outstanding support for the preservation and international promotion of the common Hungarian-Pakistani cultural heritage, the President of the Republic of Hungary, His Excellency János Áder, awarded the Officer's Cross of the Order of Merit of Hungary to Mr. Zafar Masud, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Punjab. I have to mention that besides his prestigious positions in the private sector, he also has extensive experience of working for major public sector entities, including the State Bank of Pakistan and the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Zafar Masud started his professional career at American Express in 1993. Afterwards, he served in top positions of multinational banks in Pakistan and abroad. He worked for Barclays Bank and Citibank before he joined to the Bank of Punjab as President and Chief Executive Officer on 17 April 2020. Mr. Masud was one of the passengers of Pakistan International Airline flight that crashed on 22nd May 2022, but he miraculously survived the catastrophe. After the accident, he said that he believed that God had given him a second life that he was wishing to use for the betterment of his country and its people. His words were followed by deeds, and he confirmed the Bank of Punjab's commitment to sponsor the Schoefft painting restoration project. With this, he made it possible to realize the most significant project of the common Hungarian-Pakistani cultural cooperation to date, the restoration of the iconic Schoefft paintings. These iconic pieces of art are equally part of the Pakistani and the Hungarian cultural heritage. This is indeed another extraordinary milestone of the 200 years long Hungarian-Pakistani friendship, which would have not been possible without the generous support of the Bank of Punjab. And now, I would like to call His Excellency Ambassador of Hungary, Mr. Béla Fazekas, and Mr. Zafar Masud, President of the Bank of Punjab and Chief Executive Officer, on the stage for the decoration ceremony of the Hungarian State Award.
President and Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Punjab. Following the authorization given by His Excellency János Áder, President of Hungary, on behalf of the President, I present to you the Officer's Cross of the Hungarian Order of Merit as a recognition of your outstanding supporting activity, contributing to the strengthening of the Hungarian-Pakistani cultural cooperation.
His Excellency Ambassador Béla Fazekas, Madam, Secretaries, particularly my friend Dr. Arshad here, Secretary for National History, Literary Heritage, Government of Pakistan, my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, I'm lucky to have them with me today in this very special gathering. Local and foreign dignitaries, officials of the Embassy of Hungary, my colleagues, respected and most distinguished guests. I'm extremely humbled and proud to be decorated by the highest civil award of Hungary. I must pay my gratitude to the Republic of Hungary, in particular to the President of Hungary, His Excellency Mr. János Áder, for bestowing this honor on me with respect to our efforts for promoting Hungarian art and culture in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, the concept of self and the impact of art are intertwined in myriad ways. The permanence which we seek in life and which, in essence, is absent for mortals like us, as the ultimate reality is embedded in the perception of art and its continuity over a span of multiple lifetimes of human beings. From this perspective, art becomes a symbol of permanence in an otherwise transient and transitory world of ours. This may be the reason why we connect at various levels with art as a form and focus on preservation of its legacy over centuries. Art creates in its identity a linkage to a bygone past, yet materiality and its physical presence gives us that connection to the transformative nature of time. Cultural heritage is the inheritance we have been handed down, our legacy, our memories, our physical places, objects, and intangible beliefs and practices, and so much more, which is just the right time for today to talk about. As the ambassador already highlighted, the significance of 10th of March. Art, moreover, affects the fundamental sense of self. Painting, sculpture, music, literature, and other arts are often considered to be repository of a society's collective memory and a true representation of diversity and inclusion. At the Bank of Punjab, we have embedded the DNA of diversity and inclusion in our veins, as you just heard Alia talking about it. We celebrate diversity of thought, inclusivity of our people, which is the baseline upon which we grow as an organization and make our contribution in our little way to our beloved country. Our tagline, Har Fard Ka Khayal, Care for All, encompasses an inclusive society caring for what is valuable to us all, and we pursue it as a part of its responsiveness to create a sustainable and solid foundation for our future generations. Restoration of 19th century Hungarian artist August Schoefft paintings at Lahore Fort through experts from Hungary to their original grandeur was fully sponsored by the Bank of Punjab, as you just seen, as being part of a most significant corporate social responsibility initiative. His Excellency just enlightened us that this is perhaps the biggest cultural project between the two countries. It's surely the biggest project of CSR for the Bank of Punjab as well. It signifies the importance attached by BOP towards preserving our national and a common international heritage, tying very closely to our value proposition. These 175-year-old Prince Bemba collection paintings is a part of historical significant period of the province of the Punjab, captured in a series of paintings by August Schoefft, who visited this area around 2 years after the demise of the ruler Maharaja Ranjit Singh. These paintings portray an important period of then subcontinent and now, of course, Pakistan history, and a precious surviving testament of the common heritage of Hungary, Pakistan and the Sikh community. This is, to my mind, is a true depiction of our tolerance and acceptance for all cultures and societies as a nation. I would like to emphasize on this point because we have been lynched in a very different way in the West, Ambassador. So with your permission, I would like to repeat this particular point, that whatever we have done today, to my mind, this is the real reflection of what we mean as Pakistanis, the tolerant and the acceptance for all cultures and societies as a nation. I must share with you that it is this passion for our common heritage which is very close to my heart on a personal level and to my teams, which drives us to support such initiatives wholeheartedly. We haven't stopped on just the restoration work and giving the money there. We have gone a level ahead, and this year all our calendars and diaries, by the way, are done on this restoration project. But the most significant of all the efforts that we've done so far, and we are most proud of, is the fact that we completed a coffee table book on the journey of these paintings till their restoration. You saw the softer version. The hardbound is ready to be distributed amongst you. Is authored by none other than our very own Alia Zafar, the group head for people and organizational excellence at the Bank of Punjab, which shows how we as a team were involved and committed to this project. We, Mr. Ambassador, never reached out outside the bank for any assistance, whether it was authoring the book or designing it as well. The input on the design also came from the gentleman who's here right now, Asad, and this whole thing was totally done in-house by ourselves. I must like to take this opportunity and acknowledge the enormous potential and successes of the Hungarian people in various fields. When you were talking about the contribution of the Hungarian people in Pakistan, especially on the education side, I was sharing with Dr. Arshad that there are 13 Hungarians who have received Nobel Prizes for their contribution in physics, medicine, chemistry, economics and literature. And the country has quite a few famous inventions under its belt, including the ballpoint pen, the safety match, the first atomic reactor, the hydrogen bomb, and perhaps most importantly to my mind, because in future is all about technology and digital, is the digital computing. Relatedly, there are numerous opportunities for Pakistan and Hungary to collaborate. Hungary is now economically vibrant and helping other developing countries, providing extensive economic and technological support. In Pakistan alone, it has invested $2 billion in energy sector in the last 20 years. Significant portion of all Pakistani oil and gas needs are provided by MOL, a Hungarian energy giant. My connection with MOL is that they are partners with us in OGDCL, which I happen to be the chairman of. To be precise, it's 3.6% of the oil comes from MOL and 6.5% of the gas comes from MOL. It's a significant contribution, and my felicitations to MOL on this on their contributions. But it doesn't stop here. The country is also providing 200 scholarships annually to Pakistani students for higher education in Hungarian institutions at a cost of $2 million. At the end, I would like to appreciate the efforts of the Hungarian embassy and the experts who flew into Pakistan in the midst of global pandemic, and their commitment to complete the very delicate and important work of restoration of these paintings, as you just saw. A total of 11 paintings, rather murals in many ways than one, now stand restored. with the exclusive courtesy of Hungarian Embassy and restorers, we have been able to preserve our most important historical heritage. Thank you. I must once again thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and the Republic of Hungary for this great honor and the hope that I continue to play my role as an ambassador for growing cultural and economic, mutually beneficial relationships between the Republic of Hungary and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. I once again thank you all.